So welcome everybody to our fourth webinar from Dublin. We're delighted you can join us. My name is Mary Cronin from Upthink Innovation Agency. My co-hosts are Ciara Slevin from Climate Matters and Joanne O'Rourke from Dublin City Council, Eastern Midlands Waste Regional Office. Over the last three webinars, we've discussed what is the circular economy, the future of food and bio-based systems, and finance. Today's focus is on rethinking packaging, a very topical subject. What's the future of packaging for consumer goods? We know plastics has a role to play, but is it using plastics differently is the question. There's no single answer, but we're discussing the options and the opportunities. Our presenters today will talk through their journeys, domain expertise, and share insights that will help you build knowledge, think about options, and unlock opportunities. To start, we have Sinead Murphy from RAP, who'll talk us through rethinking packaging, insights from the UK plastics packaging, and from Wales. We have Russell Walsh and Garrett Walsh from Viva Green Group, who are Irish exporters of eco-friendly solutions and products. They will share their journey. We have Romain Couture from the Irish Manufacturing Research Group, Circulaire, who will talk us through plastics options, including reusability, long-lasting options, as well as technology enabling design. And just some housekeeping before we start. This is being recorded, and please feel free to ask questions in the Q&A box as we go along. Thank you for all your questions and comments from last week. We had some really great insights from Filippo from the Irish Bioeconomy Foundation, Tom Nolan from Way to Life, Geraldine Brennan from Irish Manufacturing Research, and Dermot Hanley from Roundtable Partners. Before we begin, I'd like to say thanks to Dublin City Council, Eastern Midlands Waste Regional Office for sponsoring this series. And before we start, I'd like to hand you over to Joanne O'Rourke. Joanne.
Hello, everyone. So here we are at the final webinar of our Modus Pathways Circular Economy webinar series. And although we're a little bit sad that this is the last webinar, we are delighted with the fantastic reactions we have had to this series. So on behalf of my office, the Regional Waste Management Plan Office, I would like to say that we are absolutely delighted to be sponsoring and funding this webinar series. And of course, we have the support of the Dublin City Council Economic Development Office, our colleagues in Dublin City Council. As this is the last series, I want to extend a huge thank you to Mary Cronin from the Upthink Innovation Agency, Ciara Slevin from Climate Matters, and Sinead O'Driscoll of Web Journeys. And Sinead has been in the background the whole time, and she's been keeping us live and on air and technologically safe. And last and certainly not least, I want to thank all of you for your time and your energy and for being here with us over this 4-week journey, and for all the interactions and fantastic questions and discussions that we've had about the really important topics we have covered on this. So I'm here with my Modus colleague, Michaela Ferrando, and we will be moderating your questions and your comments today. So please do interact with us, and please do send in any questions you have to us. So I'm going to hand you back now to Mary, and she will introduce you to our fantastic panel today.
Thank you, Joanne. That's great. So to get started, Sinead Murphy, I'd like to introduce you to Sinead Murphy from RAP UK. Sinead has been with RAP since 2016 and is a business account manager working on RAP circular public procurement. She also leads the reuse and recycling work stream on the Sustainable Clothing Action Plan, RAP's UK's wide voluntary agreement for the clothing sector. Prior to that, Sinead has had a depth of experience advising on planning and sustainable design, both in the UK and internationally. Welcome, Sinead.
Thank you, Mary, and thank you, Ciara, for inviting me here today. I'm delighted to attend today. It's not often I get to be in front of an Irish audience, so it's really nice to be here. Thank you. So I work for an organisation called WRAP. WRAP stands for the Waste and Resources Action Programme. We're a UK not-for-profit, but we do work with partners in 26 countries around the globe. Our aim is to reduce waste and increase resource efficiency, and we achieve our impact through what we call levers of change. And they are policy and technical support, where we work with governments and the public sector to help develop and implement waste prevention and recycling policies. We also run business voluntary agreements, where we bring together a critical mass of players across the supply chain to change that system voluntarily. We also offer financial instruments such as grants and loans, generally administered on behalf of government. And these really are aimed at addressing a particular market failure. And the final point on the slide is citizen behaviour change. So we develop and run citizen behaviour change campaigns to help citizens prevent waste and recycle more. Next slide. So today I'm going to talk about our Plastics Pact. So our Plastics Pact is our voluntary agreement for the plastics packaging sector. We all know food waste is a huge environmental issue. From our research at WRAP, we know that if food waste were a country, it would be the third biggest emitter of greenhouse gases in the world. And we know if we didn't have plastic packaging, this is likely to be a bigger issue. That said, I think it's important to point out WRAP aren't pro-plastic or anti-plastic. We just have one simple agenda, and that's a world where plastic is valued and doesn't pollute the environment. So the UK Plastics Pact obviously is a national initiative, but we're very much aware that the plastics challenge is very much a global issue. So we work with the Ellen MacArthur Foundation to deliver plastic packs in a number of countries around the world. The Pact is based around 4 key targets to be achieved by 2025. So the first target is that 100% of plastic packaging will be reusable, recyclable, or compostable. The second target is that we'll eliminate single-use, unnecessary, and problematic packaging by 2025. The third target is that 70% of plastic packaging will be effectively recycled or composted. And the fourth target is that the average recycled content across all plastic packaging will be 30%. So currently 95% of the grocery sector and over 60% of all consumer retail packaging is covered by the Pact. So members of the agreement commit to take action to help meet these targets and to monitor and report on this annually. We currently have 95% of the grocery sector and over 60% of all consumer retail packaging is covered by members of the Plastic Pact. We've had a lot of success in the Pact already. If you go into supermarkets in the UK, for example, you'll see considerably less black plastic trays on shelves and fridges than you would have a couple of years ago. And there are plenty of changes been made that are less obvious, such as yogurt pots that were previously polystyrene, which are considered to be problematic plastics, are now being made from recycled PET. And the example that really demonstrates the changes being achieved by the Pact is the Sprite bottle. You may or may not have noticed, but Sprite now comes in clear PET when it previously would have been green PET. A few years ago, it would have been very hard to imagine that a brand like Coca-Cola, where marketing plays such a huge role, would have changed something like the colour of one of their signature bottles to aid the recycling process. And it's not just the food and drink sector that are signed up. We're increasingly seeing other sectors signed up and taking action, such as the cosmetics sector, online fashion retailers, automotive industry, all joining up to the Pact. In addition to the UK initiatives like the Pact, we also have a programme of work in Wales directly funded by Welsh Government. And while Wales is a small country, 3 million people, it has a really big circular economy ambition. And this is really underpinned by its policy and legislatory context. Wales has been the first country in the world to legislate to protect the interests of future generations through the Wellbeing of Future Generations Act. So public bodies are legally obliged to think about the long-term impact of their decisions. Wales is also committed to decarbonise the public sector by 2030. And the new circular economy strategy for Wales, called Beyond Recycling, has set very ambitious targets to become the world leader in recycling. So achieving 70% by 2025 and 100% by 2030. Wales has currently a very high recycling rate of 65% and is third best in the world. So how does this all relate to plastic packaging? Well, Wales produces more household plastic packaging than it consumes, and almost all that plastic packaging made in Wales has over 50% recycled content. And the reason for this is there is a small number of very big packaging manufacturers located in Wales, and they're already producing products with very high levels of recycled content. This is all very positive and it's going in the right direction, but it has meant some challenges for smaller SME plastics manufacturers in Wales, who can struggle to get their hands on the recycled material that they require for their processes. So we have developed a programme of support, which is funded by Welsh Government, to help overcome some of these challenges. So the first part of that support is what we call our Recycled Content Project. And through our Recycled Content Project, we're supporting Welsh manufacturers by funding a number of demonstration trials to bring products with higher levels of recycled content to market. Many of these products are using more difficult to recycle plastics, like packaging film and agricultural plastics, like silage wrap, and turning them into different products for different sectors, like mortar tubs for the construction sector, sharps boxes in the medical sector, and transport drums. Complementing this, we have the Circular Economy Fund, which is a £6.5 million grant fund available to manufacturers of products with recycled content. We've also developed a plastic mapping tool, which we've just launched on our website in the last couple of weeks. And the intention of this tool is to help support greater collaboration within Wales's plastic sector. So, for example, helping to link up organisations that may have waste from one process that could be used as a raw material for another. And I suppose also to help smaller organisations, to give them a bit more buying power through setting up cluster buying. I know there's a lot of people on the call today with a strong interest in the bioeconomy, so we also have a bioeconomy mapping tool as well for Wales. So it's all very well collecting material to be recycled and producing products with recycled content, but if we don't have a market for those products, we'll never have a circular economy. So public sector procurement is really seen as a key driver for the circular economy in Wales. And we have a programme of support for public sector organisations, the overall aim of which is to drive the demand for more sustainable products. So by sustainable products, we mean products for reuse, repair, remanufacture, and with recycled content. So we provide support from a strategic level, helping organisations change their policies and practices, training any staff with a hand in procurement from senior management right across procurement teams. We look at spend profiles to identify priorities and opportunities for more circular procurement. And we also help with specific procurement exercises. Next slide, please. And so on my last slide, I just wanted to highlight some of the resources we have available. While most of the information has been developed for a UK context, the vast majority of it is very transferable. So for businesses, manufacturers of packaging, or those looking for packaging for their products, we've lots of information available on our Plastics Pact site. So from guidance, from decision tree tools, helping you to decide what's the most appropriate packaging, case study examples, consumer insight. There's a wealth of information on the site. Also for procurers, on our Wrap Cymru site, which is our Wrap Wales site, we have some guidance for procurers. So we have a particular plastics procurement guidance for those looking to procure plastics. And the guidance in that is transferable really across all sectors, and it's equally as useful for the private sector. We also have case studies of different circular procurement examples. There's a lot of information out there on plastics, and it can be quite complicated for the citizen. So we've set up a citizen campaign to give clear evidence-based information on plastics and sustainability, and just really allows the citizen make their own informed choices. The site is freely available to use, and it's available for any organisation to use if they want to communicate with their own customers. And just to say that we're not the only organisation with information. There's lots of good information on the Ellen MacArthur Foundation, particularly a lot of case studies. The Confederation of Paper Industries in the UK has a lot of really good information about paper and card packaging. And I'm sure Romain from Circular will be able to direct you to a lot of good resources on their site also. Thank you.
Much Sinead Murphy from RAP, and it was great to get an external viewpoint outside of Ireland and to hear all the great things that are happening in Wales, another relatively small country and small population, but doing great things in terms of recycling. So maybe to expand on that, those figures you mentioned, you're third in the world in relation to recycling rates. Can you tell us a bit more about how that happened?
Yeah, I think strong leadership is definitely one of the keys to Wales' success in being such a high recycler. I think the government set some very aggressive recycling policies back 10, 15 years ago. They also set statutory targets for local authorities, because it's the local authorities that are responsible for waste collection in Wales. And they followed this then with what's called the collections blueprint. And this is really a best practice, a kind of how-to guide on what one of these collection services would look like that would achieve a 70% recycling rate by 2025. And that had information around, you know, frequency of collections, separate collections, the type of vehicles and infrastructure you need. And then they backed this up with funding. So the Welsh Government provided a lot of funding to local authorities to implement this. And they also provided technical support. And that technical support is actually provided by RAP. And so, you know, we have a team of special advisors that would actually go in to a local authority right at the start when they're doing their business planning, and would support that local authority right through their service change, right up to, you know, we still support local authorities with marketing their materials to get the best price for their recycling materials in the market. And I think the one other key point is around behaviour change. So, you know, especially when there's a service change coming and you're changing your waste collection service, you know, a huge amount of communications is needed and behaviour change campaigns. So RAP would actually support with that as well. But it's not just around the service change. I think as well, you know, recycling campaigns like national recycling campaigns really help to reinforce the message. We launched on behalf of Welsh Government a recycling campaign last year called the Wales Be Mighty campaign, and it really plays on kind of a bit of national pride, and that you know, Wales, we recycle in Wales, that's what we do, you know, to really reinforce that it's the social norm to recycle. And that campaign has been very effective. And I think the whole model actually is you know, it's been a really effective model. And I think just quickly, just one example, the last local authority to completely implement the blueprint approach, Pembrokeshire, and it increased its recycling rate by 15% in 1 year. So it has been a real success.
Thank you, Sinead. Now I'd like to introduce you to Russell Walsh and Garrett Walsh from Viva Green Group. Over the past 25 years, this Irish company, Viva Green, have been pioneers in sustainable practices and products. They are the creators and exporters of eco-friendly solutions and products, and they will share their journey with us. Welcome, Russell and Gareth.
Hello, everybody. My name is Russell Walsh. I'm from Viva Green, and actually I'm joined here today by my brother, Garrett. He's also a co-founder of Viva Green. Just firstly, I'd like to thank the team at their Pathways to a Circular Economy, Ciara, Mary, Joanne and Sinead, for having us talk about our journey. We're nearly 30 years in business, and we're an engineering business, and what we do is we develop eco-friendly alternatives to the many hazardous and not so eco-friendly products on the market that are used in our homes and businesses every day. our strategy is driven by market trends, so we observe consumer trends and also in the commercial markets as well. And we look to regulatory changes that are coming down the road. And I'll give you a quick background on some of the products that we've been developing over the last 30 years. The main product we're going to talk about today is the True Eco range, but just I'll give you a bit of background on what we've been on to today. If you look at the pie chart on the right-hand side of that screen, you'll see at the top right-hand corner is a green object. That's a stake. It's called the green stake. And that was developed back in the 1990s at a time when eco wasn't such a buzzword. It's made from a byproduct of vegetable processing. And the whole purpose of that stake is to replace metal and plastic pins that are used in the landscaping industry for pinning down turf sod, weed barrier, and a number of other applications. The great thing about that product is after it's served its function, it completely disappears with no implications for the environment. With quite a range of customers, including John Deere, their landscaping division in the States, California Parks use them for pinning down the weed barriers and saplings, which they've been planting many hundreds of thousands of on the back of the California wildfires that they experienced last year. And Glastonbury actually took 1 million of them off us for giving out to campers for using as tent pegs. To date, we've exported over 100 million of those stakes, so it's been very good for us.
The next product that came along actually in our development was the range of green sacks products, which you'll see in the top left-hand side of the pie chart. And actually, this came about as a result of us seeing changes in legislation to divert food waste from landfill to composting. And this was in order to reduce the amount of methane that would be emitted from food waste decomposing in a landfill situation. So what we did was we developed a range of compostable bags which people would use to line their domestic food waste bins. Now, people also found other uses for these, and these replaced plastic bags with an eco-friendly alternative. As a result of this, we were first on the shelves in the supermarkets in Ireland, like in the likes of SuperValu and Dunnes Stores. And to date, Green Sacks has replaced over 300 tons of plastic bags.
In the bottom left-hand corner is a product we launched on the market. It's called, the brand name is Remade. It's a range of plastic bin bags, and they're made from 100% Irish plastic waste. What inspired us to develop those products was the export challenges for plastic waste. In particular, the Chinese market closed its borders to the import of waste plastic. Also, Ireland has the highest per capita output of plastic waste at 54 kilos, which is not something that we're proudly the highest in Europe, that is. And also, plastic is a useful resource, and we wanted to keep this in the cycle of use for longer. So we thought, well, why not develop a range of bags that are for sale in Dunnes and SuperValu around the country, and that are available to consumers, where it's a sustainable choice. And to date, we've substituted over 150 tons of virgin plastic bags with the Remade.
Our next follow-on product to the Remade, you will see in the bottom right-hand corner of the pie chart, and this is called Moss Off, and it's a first-of-a-kind product for controlling moss on hard surfaces and in lawns. And what is unique about this product is that it works in a chemical-free way. Currently, we export this all over Europe and are presently talking to the US EPA about exploring opportunities there. And for those that are interested, it is currently available in Woodie's in Ireland. Next slide, please. Oh, thank you. In this slide, you will see our range of it's the True Eco product, which we developed. And this is a range of household laundry and cleaning products listed on the right-hand side, consisting of washing up liquid, laundry detergent, fabric softener, and an all-purpose cleaner. And traditionally, these were made of synthetic chemicals and petrochemicals. And we have replaced these ingredients with plant-based ingredients, which we formulated ourselves in-house. And with these ingredients being of benefit to us, along with that, the plastic bottles are also made from recycled plastic. Now, with population growth, it will not be possible to recycle all the plastics needed in the future. Therefore, it will be necessary to reduce and reuse plastic packaging. So Russell will explain how our reuse system will work for this True Eco product.
So on the next slide, you'll see a number of images, and I'll just draw you to the middle image first. Consumers, we're finding that consumers are when they're purchasing products, in their process and the consideration of what they'll buy, they don't just want to know what's in the product or in the bottle. They want to know the story of the packaging itself and what the journey of that is. So I suppose in response to that, we developed what is called the green loop. So starting with the ingredients themselves, they're plant-based, they're biodegradable. So they return to the environment, they break down after they've served their use. On the packaging, on the bottling itself, those bottles are made of 100% recycled material, and they're 100% recyclable. And then to the next stage, which was refillability, which was a very important part of this whole product development. And what we set up were refill stations, which are located around Ireland. So when a consumer goes and buys one of the pre-filled products in the supermarket, they're able then, when that product is finished and they've finished using it at home, to go to one of our refill stations, which you can see in the image on the left-hand side there. And they're able to refill those bottles. And those refill stations actually house 20-litre drums, which are seen in the right-hand image there. You'll see two stacks of bottles there. The bottles on the right-hand side are bottles that are going out of our factory, and they're actually filled up and ready to be put into the refill stations. The ones on the left-hand side are returned. So we take back the bottles from when they are finished, we take them back in, we refill them, and then we send them back out again. So in an ideal world, what we want to do is keep the plastic in the cycle of use for longer. So not only is the environment a winner here, but also consumers are as well. Because what we do is, because they're not using the same pre-fill bottle, and they're reusing that over and over again, and not disposing of that, they're saving that cost, and that cost translates into savings. Next slide, please. So my colleague Sean actually did a tally recently of what the numbers of bottles that have actually been reused based on the volumes of product we sold from our refill stations. So you can see that's quite a considerable number, and we have a long way to go as well. So the opportunity is quite big. Next slide, please. So anyway, some of the challenges we have faced, I suppose one is timing, not being too late, not being too early either. Pricing in order, well, one needs to be competitive. There's a lot of players in this category, and we need to, consumers can only suffer a certain amount of premium over and above what they're currently paying. And just to give you an indication, one of our products is a washing up liquid. It's a 500 ml bottle. It retails around €2.50 per bottle. And based on the rates of sale we're experiencing, we see that the consumer finds that that is a very reasonable cost to pay. In marketing budgets, actually, I'll touch on that in the next slide, but I'll move on to shelf space. As you can see, if you could just go back a slide, if you don't mind, Sinead. On shelf space, you can see it's at a premium. And what we have done is to try and get us around that issue is on the right-hand side of that slide, you'll see a shot of our freestanding display unit, which takes us off the shelf and actually draws attention to the product. Finally, changing behaviors. Well, again, that comes back to timing. And it was interesting that Sinead made some references in her presentation, and that they're running behavioural change campaigns which are supported by government. And we're doing our best to do that, but we need support as well. Next slide, please. So just on the marketing budgets issue, as an SME, we don't have a huge budget, but we're finding at the moment that consumers have a huge appetite for sustainable products, and that the traditional media and digital media are open to publishing information about this because it is a current news item. And as you can see there, we've got a lot of coverage at a minimal cost, actually, to our business. And that's it. So you'll see in the last slide, there are my contact details if anyone wants to get in touch. And thank you for listening to our contributions.
Thank you, Russell and Gareth. There are so many questions coming in, and I have so many questions myself. I won't ask you what it's like working with family. We'll leave that for a different show, maybe. I have to say, I first heard of Viva Green as you were being interviewed on the Bobby Care show. So I have to thank Bobby for that introduction, and I'm a fan of your products. Maybe just that challenge around in the issue of retail price points for your True Eco range versus that established non-eco-friendly competitors, and how did you get around that, or how did you take that on?
Yeah, it's a very relevant question. For example, we're undertaking the development of a new product at the moment, and that particular product currently retails in a size that is a 250 milliliter, 300 milliliter size. Now, to actually develop the product in line with the aspirations of a circular economy, it would make sense for us to make it in a larger bottle, maybe a 400 or a 500 ml bottle. So you have fewer bottles in circulation. And also there are fewer journeys by the consumer to the refill stations. However, a 500 ml bottle will involve a higher price point, and that will be a challenge for us. The way we would see that we could deal with that would be with our messaging. Firstly, on the pack itself, on the bottle, where we actually have to educate the consumer as to why they're buying and the larger size. They may not, standing at the shelf, be able to see clearly that even though the 500 ml size, that the cost per litre will be lower than a smaller bottle size, but they would be looking at an absolute price. So we would also undertake a campaign of education, such as in any media opportunity we get, to get that information across. So it's a long process, it's a long road, it's a journey.
I suppose we've had to work hard in that by having actually a product that has sort of attractive ingredients such that people are willing to pay a premium for, say, a plant-based product that they feel is a healthier choice.
Okay, thank you, Russell and Garrett. Again, we'll try to get to some of the other questions towards the end. Our final speaker today, I'd like to invite Roman Couture from Irish Manufacturing Research, where Roman is a circular economy senior researcher. So thank you, Roman, for coming along today. And over to you.
Hello, Kira. Thank you very much for having me. And first of all, I want to thank Kira, Joanne, and Mary for putting this thing together. It's a very great series of talks that you guys have organized. So my name is Romain Couture. I am a senior circular economy researcher at Irish Manufacturing Research. I have been especially in charge of the delivery, the team responsible for the delivery of Circulera, which is a national platform for circular manufacturing in Ireland. So we do it in collaboration with the Department of the Environment, Climate and Communications, with the EPA and with Climate Kick as strategic partners. Now we have about 30 industry members from various industries such as agri-food, plastics, recycling, IT, and so on. So it's great to be able to talk to you today about packaging and how we can rethink it in the circular economy and how IMR, Irish Manufacturing Research, tries to work for that. So next slide, please. First of all, when we talk about packaging, I want to be very clear on what we mean actually. So we especially talk about plastic packaging and how it is an issue for us. So what is actually plastic? Plastics are a byproduct of oil actually. And how is it fabricated? So manufactured at first, when oil is extracted, it gets into a refinery. As it gets into the refineries, then it gets heated, basically, refined. And next one, please. And as it gets refined, you see that there are various fractions. The very heavy ones are bitumen and asphalt. Then you have heavy fuel oil, so that's for the tankers. You have then, as it gets lighter, lubricants, diesel, kerosene. And you see here what's circled, naphtha. Naphtha is actually what is created to make plastics. So this means that plastics is actually a byproduct of oil. And as long as we keep extracting oil, we will be producing plastics. It is a function of it. So 8% of the oil that of a barrel of oil that we have is plastic. And then naphtha gets steam cracked, as it's called, into various compounds, such as you see here, ethylene and propylene. You might be familiar with these names. And then, so that's how then pellets are then manufactured, and pellets are then shaped into the final product, which is plastic bottles, protective films, whatever. So you have a lot of different uses here. So what I really want to everybody to understand from this slide is that actually, even if we say that we have to stop using plastic, we will always keep producing plastics as long as we will be extracting oil, sadly. So as long as we have oil, we will have cheap virgin plastic. So in that sense, it is important to understand the issue here and how we can deal with it. Next one, please. So why should we talk about plastics and packaging in general? So plastics is a very good material, very important material. And that's why since the 50s or 60s, when we have mastered how to produce it on a large scale, we have been using it too much. It is a very long-lasting material. It is very resistant, and so on and so on. It can be shaped into many different ways, and it has become ubiquitous now in our society. The issue is that we are producing a lot of single-use plastics, and that is the issue here. That is that we have gotten so used to be in our comfort of discarding plastic, whereas it's actually a material that can be used over and over again. So in 2018, Ireland has produced 1 million tons of packaging wastes and 68% recycled, but plastics statistics are not as good. So Ireland is actually the most important generator of plastic waste in the EU. As I think it was Russell that said that earlier, 54 kilograms per inhabitant in 2018. That's far ahead of Luxembourg, which is number 2. And our recycling rate is fairly okay, but it's not the best. It's not the worst. It's 31%. The objective was 22.5. So in 2020, so we have surpassed it. However, in 2025, the EU now has set the bar way higher, and countries will need to recycle 50% of their plastic packaging waste. So Ireland has a real challenge to face for the near future. Next one, please. Oh yeah, and sorry, just to come back on that very quickly. As you saw, can you go back on the last one, please? The importance about plastic waste is that every year now 8 million tons of plastic are dumped into our oceans, and that's what attracted attention to this issue. So in Ireland, plastics are always almost discarded into bins and therefore end up either in energy recovery plants, that would be incineration, or in recycling plants to be then recycled. So the recycling facilities in Ireland are not that great because of economies of scale that we mentioned earlier. There is one post-consumer plastic recycler in Ireland, which is Shabra Recycling. There is a few post-industrial plastic recyclers, but most of our plastic wastes, recyclable plastic waste, ends up in is exported to the UK and then to other countries to be then further processed. Next one, please. So how should we approach plastic? This in front of you here is the circular manufacturing framework that Circulera has developed for its members. As you can see here, the goal is to kind of have everything in a circle, have product in a circle, starting with secondary raw materials. How do I approach my materials to have to make sure they are not virgin? At some point, everybody needs to include a bit of virgin materials, but the aim is not to work with virgin materials. And we had the example earlier with Viva Green, who worked to try to incorporate some waste materials as a virgin material for them and try to close the loop on that, which is very interesting. Then you have the manufacturing of parts and ingredients and of products. And then another touch point is the distribution and retail. Then you have the use of a product and how do you ensure that the life cycle of a produce will be as long as possible, that it will stay in use for as long as possible. So you would have for that the refillable schemes that Russell and Garrett have implemented. And then you would have collection and sorting. So that's when we throw away our recyclables in the yellow bin, and then treatments. So that would be either energy recovery, which is not the most economically viable way to recover energy, but the best way would be for recycling and reuse. So next one, please. You see here in green, so some of the strategies that can be implemented at each stage. So it is just to give you a taste of what it looks like. So you see here in the manufacturing of parts and manufacturing of products, you have various different strategies that companies can implement. So you have working on procurement and working on bio-based material, working on design and compounding, on operations such as closed loop manufacturing or zero waste manufacturing. And you can work on packaging at manufacturing stage, which is reducing first, because the best waste is the waste that you do not produce. Working with bio-based material, try to reuse in store, and at least even if you reuse only a few times, then you always win that little bit, and then you get your mind in the right mindset. Then you have logistics and packaging, which is allowing access to repair, for example, or a mutualization of logistics. Extending the life cycle is, in my opinion, one of the most important circular economy strategies that can be implemented, because that's a way to actually not even having to recycle the products in the first place, not even having to do repair strategies, remanufacturing strategies. If you can just have products that last for a very, very long time, that's the way to go. And then you have valorization, so second life hierarchy, reverse logistics, and in the end, second life. So as I said, composting, biorefining, etc. So next one. One of the ways that IMR has approached that is through the Probot project. So Probot was funded by the Environmental Protection Agency. And we did this project last year with Limerick University and with ICOMP, especially with a fine gentleman named Dr. Walter Stanley. I don't know if he's listening today, and Rachel Kennedy, sorry. So the opportunity was to basically harvest post-consumer PET bottles. So PET are the clear plastic bottles, that we drink that have water, for example, and trying to recycle these by giving them a added value and form them into a self-reinforced polymer. And for the automotive industry or for the agricultural industry, adding value to plastics like that is actually a great way to create economic growth in your own country instead of exporting the plastic bottles straight away into another country. If you can transform them at least a little bit and add the value in your own country, so in Ireland, that's a way to go. That's the way China, for example, is currently working with rare earth materials. Instead of just exporting the neodymium and the germanium into the USA or into Europe, they actually manufacture batteries themselves and then sell these batteries, and therefore creating jobs and economic growth in China. So the goal of that project was to kind of understand how we could do the same in Ireland. And the circular strategies that this project had, so first of all, it was working with secondary raw materials, so PET plastic bottles, enabling design for sustainability by creating a long-lasting recyclable material, reducing manufacturing waste, because working normally a self-reinforced polymer is made with polypropylene, and here working with PET, so polyethylene terephthalate, you had a wider processing window, meaning less waste, basically. The use phase, the product is extremely robust and durable. And finally, the end of life, the composite is fully recyclable. So that's a project that we did with Probot, and thank you for them. Thank you for the EPA. Thank you for Limerick University for that project. Next slide, please. A second case study, which is not in Ireland, but it's still a very good example of how we can address the issue of single-use packaging. And it's a B2C, so business to consumer one here. So it's called the Loop. And Loop has developed partnership with major brands such as Coca-Cola, Procter & Gamble, Unilever, you see them on the right, so I won't go over all of them. And with retailers in France, in the UK, and they have launched in Canada recently, in the US. And so in France, for example, there's Carrefour, which is one of the major retailers in the country. And they enable customers to buy, for example, your Häagen-Dazs ice cream you see on the left here in containers in packaging that is designed to last for a long time. And so they deliver it, or you can buy it in the store. And then when you're done using it, you just bring it back and they rinse it, clean it, and refill it, basically. So I think it's after 7 or 8 uses that the system is environmentally viable. So it is a great way to approach packaging in a way that is non-single-use, non-always disposable. So it does require customers to change their behaviors a bit, but it's still a great way for them to engage with circularity. So next one, please. So that's it for me. I just want to leave you with that phrase from Jacques Chirac, who was a former French president. Of course, for me, it had to be a French guy. There is no greater risk than staying still in a changing environment. As we see here, there is regulations that are changing in Europe, and the EU especially is aiming to be the first circular continent by 2050, but it might happen before that. Many companies are aiming towards zero waste, towards being fully circular. So it is changing. So now it is up to everyone to actually go with the flow, because staying still is not good to help manufacturers change much. So thank you very much for listening to me. And I think on the next page here, the contact details for us, circular@imr.ie, if you want to engage with us.
Super, that's great, Romain. And there's lots of questions coming in for everybody. So I might have just one very brief question, because we have about 10 minutes left for our Q&A. So there's fantastic information there, and thank you for the case study. So companies out there are listening to this. Where do they get more information to find out about options on sustainable packaging solutions? Where would you advise them to go?
For us, anyway, look, at Circular, we have developed an online library that kind of centralizes a lot of various case studies and documents, policy, and various strategies on circular economy that can be taken for manufacturers. So they can either approach us at circular@imr.ie, and I would love to have a chat with them just to see how we can work together and what's possible to do. Or they can just this online library, and I will put the link in the chat if you want.
Super, that's fantastic. There's a few questions there, and maybe just one I'll just pick out of the chat. Maybe you may know this. Do you know about the tax, or have you information on the tax introduced this year in the EU for plastic waste? Romain?
Sorry, are you talking to me? Sorry.
Yes.
I've had a tax introduced on plastic waste. No, I have not. Sorry.
Okay, so we can check that out. That's from one of our listeners. Okay, super. So thank you, Romain, for that. That's really good. So maybe we'll just take a few of the questions. There's a few questions there, Romain, in the chat. Maybe you could pick up one or two of them. A lot of questions there coming in for Viva Green. Great presentation. Some people are looking to wonder where are some of the recycling stations? Where are your recycling stations, Russell?
Well, we're in the process of rolling out at the moment. They are dotted around the country, and they literally are coming in every other day. We have a new stockist. We put them up on the website. It's
they're on your website.
Process of listing them.
Okay, super. So maybe Russell, you might take this, or maybe Romain. One of the questions here is: do you foresee an enhanced role for recycling centres, refilling stations, compost makers, and repair facilities? Do you see that, Russell or Gareth?
Well, I suppose research data has shown that the recycling infrastructure may not be able to develop quick enough to be able to keep up with the demand based on population growth and consumer trends. And I think, we're all being forced to look at reduction and reuse. And I suppose that's why we have pushed this, is to keep the plastic in the cycle of use for longer, and to have people reusing the same packaging for longer.
Okay, very good. Very good, that's great. And maybe just one question. Sorry, Gareth, go ahead.
No, we've also found that because the use of recycled plastic is growing in popularity, that it's actually hard to get it to actually manufacture recycled bottles from recycled plastic.
Okay, very interesting. Super, that's great.
Yeah, so the infrastructure needs to grow to recycle, yeah.
Yes, for sure. Super, thank you, Gareth. Maybe to Sinead, just one question, very interesting and very impressive. Your third best recycling in the world, rates in the world. What do you think, Sinead, maybe the opportunities in Ireland? What can we learn?
I suppose, what really has been key in Wales is setting ambitious targets and having strong leadership, really, in terms of setting your circular economy principles and policies. And if I was to pick out one thing that's really driving it now in Wales, is the Wellbeing of Future Generations Act, because it really puts an onus on the public sector bodies in Wales. We've examples of motorways being turned down, that have gone through planning and turned down because of the future generations, because it wasn't in the interest to put more cars on the road and decrease air quality for our future generations. Yes. So it's a really powerful piece of legislation, and that's really driving a lot of the decisions that are being made and policies that are being developed.
Very good. We have a lot of questions coming in, but unfortunately we've only time for one more question. So Ciara, I might let you pick one of those questions out there before we finish up. And what we might do is, with a lot of questions for Viva Green, we have Russell's and Gareth's email address here, so we might put you in contact directly with Russell and Gareth. Ciara, one final question before we finish up.
Sure. This is a technical type question, so whoever is best placed, particularly around plastic, is it a lot more difficult to recycle soft plastic than hard plastic? And even this attendee is asking, can soft plastic not be recycled at all? So.
Do you mind if I answer that one?
Of course, yeah.
Soft plastic is actually being recycled already. It's especially post-industrial soft plastic. So it's soft plastic that's industrial, that manufacturers use. And because this soft plastic at the end of its use is not contaminated, which is the issue here, industrial put them together in big bales and then they send them to recyclers like Green Tech Recycling in Limerick. And they work with these soft plastics and they are able to recycle them. Now, the issue is with post-consumer soft plastics, so the ones that we send to the recycling center in the one in Ballymount, for example. The thing is, because it's mixed with so many other ones, it's fairly complicated for the machines first to pick them out and to so it's hard to have a clean stream of soft plastics that are not contaminated, and that's why at the moment it's fairly hard to recycle it, but technology is advancing on that.
Super. That's great. That's fantastic. Thank you, Ciara. Okay,
Mary,
so that
point.
yes, of
You
course.
asked me there
Russell?
about stockists of the True Eco range, the refilling stations. Just to say that information is updated on a daily basis at vivagreen.ie. So
Great.
I don't think I got that point across clearly enough the last time.
That's great. Super. We put that on a link on the slides when they go out. Russell, thank you for that. So that's all we have time for today. Thank you to all our attendees for joining us. It's been a pleasure being on this journey with you. So we did 4 webinars and all 4 are available. If you missed any, certainly let us know and we'll happily send you a link to them. From the high numbers who have registered, we know that there's a great interest in the circular economy, and we intend to build on these webinars to create awareness of the circular economy. Plus, we want to create more initiatives to help build the ecosystem to become more circular and make change happen. We can only do this through collaborations and co-creation with all of you, be that SMEs, policymakers, investors. So we'd love to hear from you and get your feedback on the series. If you have any specific topics or subjects or any great speakers like the ones we've had that you'd like to cover particular topics, then let us know in the circular economy or the bioeconomy. We would welcome your suggestions. We will send a survey, or you can send us feedback directly to me, and we're certainly going to look into them. Also, we'll have a resources link in our final slide, so we'll have resources from today like we did last week. So thank you to all our superb speakers, Sinead Murphy from RAP, Russell and Garrett Walsh from Viva Green Group, and Romain Couture from IMR and Circulaire. And a big thank you to Dublin City Council and to Joanne O'Rourke. This couldn't have happened without Joanne and Michaela and the Modus group. Thanks to Ciara from Climate Change, from Climate Matters, and Sinead O'Driscoll from Web Journey, our digital marketing partner, technical partners. Thank you all again for joining us.